Tara George has the match ball. Bill Alexander from England. Carolyn Logan of Scotland are our umpires. We wish them all the best too, because it will be fierce out there. Straight to Van Dijk, who takes it over Ellis. It was a great delivery.
Great vision, and Liz had just moved half a stride off and opened the space. Well read, New Zealand.
Packing the mid-court. New Zealand, they do it so well off the centre pass. Chatfield. Gilsonen. And early whistle to Australia.
Yeah, Jodie Tahuna out of play.
Southby swings it across to Von Berto. And McMahon.
Well, Southby Halbish putting the work on with a screen to allow some room for McMahon. So the Australian feeders swinging it around till they can fight it again. Southby Halbish on the hold.
And Scarlett out early.
These early umpiring calls will give us a very clear indication of what will be allowed in the contest, and that first one indicating that the players will be pulled off each other.
In June, New Zealand had a 2-goal lead at quarter time. Catherine Cox will be surprised and disappointed, as will be a couple of other players on that Australian bench. They're not in the starting line, but won't mind if they can get the win here.
Well, I think you can form a queue with players disappointed to be not on a starting 7, but they are aware that they still have development towards Com Games. Jamaican series off the back of this.
Tahuna gets her first. McMahon. Crisp work off the centre pass. Angles being run everywhere. Shin dropped what she should have taken, and they've called it a replay. Just took her eye off the ball. There was no pressure over the reception.
Brilliant ball from George, using the floorboards to Langman.
And Shin quicker to the ball that Langman dropped. And she's put out of play. I wasn't sure about the call from Bill Alexander, but it's made clear.
Well, the danger, Steve, is when you put pressure on umpires that they haven't pulled up enough, as in June, the danger is the whistle comes out and interrupts the game constantly.
Oh, and Billy Darby has cleaned up Carolyn Logan. And they're given the ball. Oh, no, they're not. Well, Carolyn Logan had her arm out the wrong way, so no wonder Billy misunderstood here. Down she goes. Ouch.
That's not the way to endear yourself to the umpire, is it?
Carolyn Logan umpired at the 95, 99 and 03 World Championships, so has seen these teams go round.
Well, a nervous start under the post for the Australian shooters.
They're 1 from 4.
In the domestic league, Southby Halbish, McMahon and Cox average in the mid-80s, so they're well used to putting up under pressure.
Quick hands from Darbu to the front of the Australian goaler. Amazing defence from her. Tahuna.
I think, Steve, what Australia must address is that at home, there isn't as much focus on the defence of the shot. It's more about court play. In New Zealand, they really are asking the defenders to work over the shot and the psyche of the shooter. Hence Scarlett, who'd normally not match up on McMahon, she's there to get her back in the circle.
Pass or shot.
3-1 New Zealand. And a similar story. They're 3 from 3. Australia 1 from 4. McMahon trying to fool Bill Alexander about whose possession that was by running back to her third.
Contact.
Wilson. Tahuna.
So Australia playing a 2-on-1, paying close attention to Van Dijk, and then picking up Tahuna when she enters the circle, a pattern that they did employ in June, and we expected in this match, or one of the patterns that they'll try. And the contact call goes against Chatfield, so we've now got a situation where any touch or any bump is going to be blown by the umpire. Stark contrast to June.
Well, I think they're trying to put some authority on the game early, and that's understandable, but this one goes to Langman.
Well read, Bianca Chatfield.
Comfortable intercept.
Yeah, floating ball, and you don't usually see that out of the Kiwi hands.
Bomberto. Tap on the back from Temapara George. Mightn't get another one for the match. Southby Halbish.
Obstruction, goal defense.
Good call from Logan. Scarlett well within the 3 feet. Wasn't the problem that she was behind the player, it's just that the distance wasn't good enough. Darbu was probably safe in front.
I think the Australian goalers are obviously got to help each other out. Screen whenever possible. George.
And think broom handles.
Yeah. Van Dijk back out. Tahuna.
See, that's good clean work from Chatfield. Had to go at the front ball, but very quick on the recovery. They just need to get over the shot.
Gilsonen. Bomberto. Shin. Top of the circle, Southby Halbish, and driving to the post, McMahon.
Sherelle McMahon put in the kilometres then on that attacking phase. She really put the sprints on to open some space for herself.
Fine, destruction wing attack.
Langman. Oh! McMahon picks it off. They've got to look for those and treasure them when they get them. Southby Halbish back to Gilsonen.
She's out on the line, so the Australian shooting duo playing Southby Halbish with leads at least on the far side of the court, so they're mixing up the workload. There comes the screen, a little late from Southby Halbish.
And that one tossed away to the corner. Darbu for the restart. New Zealand by 2. 6.5 minutes gone. First quarter in Auckland.
So I think already, Steve, we see that the girls have been sent out to look for close-range shots, work the ball till they find it, put some screens up to hold the defenders off the position and off the shot.
Chatfield can't defend that one. Tahuna puts it through. McMahon.
Contact, go attack.
And the contact goes against Sherelle McMahon. How'd you read it, Annie?
Well, the question is whether the distance was good from Scarlett in the first place. If Logan has deemed the distance was good, she held up and McMahon tried to force her way through the arms.
Wilson. In the corner is Van Dijk.
Oh, bother. We're in bother.
Player's gone down, and it's
Liz
Ellis. And it's a knee, and she looks in a lot of trouble. Oh, terrible blow early in the match. The Australian captain, most capped Australian player today with 105.
Well, Liz, as we know, is as tough as they come. Already has a history of significant injuries here in New Zealand. It's not the start you want for Australia, nor for the captain. You see there as she lands it, the leg buckles underneath her, the right knee.
Yeah. And she came down from quite a distance. She was leaping to try and deprive Van Dijk of possession, and it's come down awkwardly, and you don't want to think the worst, but that did not look good at all. And there'll be concern on the Australian bench. You've got Broadbent and Demelza Fellows as possible circle defenders.
I think we can expect the introduction of Demelza Fellows for the height factor back in the circle.
Lasting less than half of the first quarter, the Australian captain is carried off by Lynn Few and Wayne Rogers. That's a terrible blow. And remember, this team is supposed to go to Jamaica tomorrow for a further 3 tests.
And look at Liz's face, trying so hard to hold it all together, but flashing through her mind would not just be Jamaica, it would be Commonwealth Games, it would be a whole range of things that you can't stop the floodgates opening on. For Australia, a very big test of composure, of how close they are as a unit, of whether McMahon can step up to captaincy.
6-3 at the moment that Ellis went off. So we'll keep that in mind. It's so early in the game.
Big test for Demelza Fellows. Liz knows Irene. Both of them know each other so well, almost instinctively. So there's an amount of pressure that just goes with association. And Demelza must now create some respect.
Shin. 3 in the midcourt for Australia from different clubs. McMahon anchors the left foot. Obstruction against Billy Darwin. Slaps the thigh 2 or 3 times. Southby Halbish trying to get Scarlett away.
And it's
comical dance happening around that post.
It is a game that is so disrupted, both by the umpires, the injury, the tactics being played. Very difficult for all players to get a rhythm.
Beside and away, said Carolyn Logan. Keep your distance, Billy Darbu. Well, she's a screen to watch and torture to play against.
So the reprimands are coming from the whistle, both in free play and even when the players are out of play.
Southby Halbish to get Australia back to within 2.
Much better timing than on the jump from Scarlett, but the Australians shoot through the pressure.
The extra string to Scarlett's bow is that she's a fantastic volleyballer, so really knows how to leap and deflect and block.
Contact centre.
Tahuna, Fellows defending, too close.
That's good goal attack.
And New Zealand are 8 from 8. Australia 5 from 8. And if we're just joining the coverage, the bad news is that Liz Ellis, Australian captain, is off with what looks like a significant knee injury. And so Scarlett's left that behind. Contact against McMahon.
Well, Sherelle choosing a poor line to chase that ball. She took on the body and it wasn't necessary. Australia losing possession through a poor pass from Southby Halbish. She's doing a lot of work in attack to allow McMahon the post drive.
See that drop ball from Gilsonen, not called a replay. Earlier in the game, Shin called for exactly the same offence and was a replay. Look for some consistency on that from our umpires.
I think the game is swinging backwards and forwards so quickly that Caroline Logan is really having to put on the speed to keep up with the change of direction. She's been caught a couple of times on the change. I think credit to Australia to keep the margin and start to chisel in, given what they've just had to watch. Their captain leave the court.
Just 3 shots so far for Van Dijk, 5 for Tahuna. Doesn't, oh, I was going to say it doesn't matter if she keeps shooting them, but that is their first miss, New Zealand.
Oh, not setting the throw-in, is that the call?
Throw in.
It was quickly played by Australia, and I suspect Bill Alexander has said not setting the throw-in. I couldn't see a problem with it.
Oh, smart ball from George back to Tahuna. That is a dream feed. 9-6 New Zealand. Oh, Gilsonen had Fellows off balance for that pass.
Keep a contact, pass or shot.
Contact against Chatfield.
Well, I have to wonder how the New Zealand defensive duo will hold up under Bill Alexander's whistle when the teams change into the second quarter, because he really is addressing both the contact, the distance, and overly, I'd suggest, very long.
Chatfield took the rebound to get Australia going forward. Davu almost had it. Scarlett does. Australia again, great touch from Bomberto.
Well, you mentioned volleyball, and that really was an excerpt from the game.
Catherine Cox on the edge of the seats. McMahon got it to within 2. New Zealand centre pass. So it's gone goal for goal for a little while since the Ellis injury. Van Dijk.
Adine Wilson is using the space behind the defender beautifully, putting her line onto the circle edge, and her feed has also, as has Temapara George, has been exceptional.
Great speed from McMahon, well spotted by Shin.
Beautiful ball over the top to Van Dijk.
Davu. Scarlett. She's trying everything, Sherelle McMahon is, I guess, the on-court captain now.
Yes, she is, but it's that nice mix between trying and staying calm and within the constraints of the game. Love to see her ease off a fraction.
Great rebound from Van Dijk.
Contact goal defense, pass or shot. Why you are good. Shot from goalkeeper, 2 out.
Both Australian defenders now out. Bill Alexander really working to clear any contest out of the game.
Advantage obstruction, wing attack.
Well, the work there done by Fellows off the ball.
Goal attack.
Noticed by Bill Alexander, so the Australians will have to be careful.
McMahon has given up 5 penalties, along with Chatfield, so they're the 2 highest penalty conceders. And they're starting to gap the Australians with a 12-goal lead now, 2 minutes out from the first break. Lee Gibbs and Ruth Aitken. Gee, there's some coaching experience there for those 2. Lee Gibbs was coach at the '95 World Championships.
Circle rotation from the Australians, and again, they're looking for the screen on every opportunity. The front hold worked hard by South Africa. Joel Scarlett off McMahon.
Shin had two sort of earlier opportunities to let the ball go. Anyway, no damage done. If South Halbish can put this one away, which she does.
Steve, we spoke earlier of the lack of natural combination across the midcourt for Australia. That's now extended into the defence circle, with many players not having played together before. Penalties very even across this first quarter, so both Bill Alexander and Carolyn Logan using the whistle extensively, but with no apparent bias to either side. We'll check that across the second quarter.
Great take, Nat von Berto.
That is contact!
And McMahon works to the front of Davu.
Again, it's good patience from the Australian feeders. They're waiting till they can get close-range shots for their shooters. And again, the screen keeping the other defender off the shot.
Back to 3, and Australia's centre pass.
Nice drive onto the circle. Shin
was really tested by that pass. They thought there was a step perhaps, but great protection of the ball by George. Fellows gives up the penalty. She's got to race back to the circle. She's doing that now. George, Wilson unguarded in the corner, and Tahuna. Oh, that was a bit simple.
Well, the attention being paid to Van Dijk allows Tahuna to become open, but the Australians a little slow then to switch and to adapt.
10 seconds to try and see off the New Zealand attack. Contact against Laura Langman, and they slowed it down fairly successfully. So they'll be lucky to get away a shot here. They don't. Bill Alexander blows the end of a dramatic first quarter in Auckland, a quarter in which Australian cap on at wing attack. She is the goal attack for the Sydney Swifts most traditionally. Let's see how she goes. She's at least as quick as Jess Shin, but Shin's more experienced as a mid-quarter, and the first feed into South Halbish, although that was from McMahon, goes astray.
It's interesting when you look at the mix of the Australian 12, there's probably not one of them that you would declare to be a wing attack. They cover it beautifully because they're good netballers, but there probably isn't a designated wing attack. So Norma Plummer looking for options through the line. The
3 of the 15 players left out for the 12 to play or to be named tonight. The unlucky players, Nat Avellino, Kristen Heinrich and Sarah Barrett. So Avellino was the player who played the whole match at wing attack in June. A little unlucky to miss out. And I'm sure her mother thinks so, having flown over here to watch the game. Wilson. Van Dijk. Back to George. Gilsonen trying to look after one of the slipperiest players in world netball.
Contact, goal defense.
Contact against Fellows.
Yep.
Penalties dead even at 20 apiece.
Obstruction, right defense.
And New Zealand's 15 goals coming from 18 attempts at a healthy 83. South Halbish.
Nice work by McMahon, who slips off the back of the defender, opening the space.
Another turnover in that attacking circle for Australia.
Oh, look at the confidence in the Kiwi ball. The ball released with beautiful speed down the court, and that's always testimony to a happy side who's feeling good.
Obstruction, both players out.
Both defenders out.
Both of you stand beside and away, please.
Staunch Krug of Carolyn Logan. Physical education teacher.
See here the feed from Anderson into the space, but it's shut down by Scarlett with those long-ranging arms.
Tahuna. And Van Dijk.
Contact, pass the shot.
There's clear contact on the Van Dijk arm, and she cleverly played it back off Chatfield and out of court again. She had it both ways.
Covered. This is a dangerous opening. New Zealand really widening the margin early in the second quarter.
It's a 4-0 start to the second. Anderson.
Barnage contact centre.
McMahon. Scarlett, great jump. First goal for Australia coming after nearly 3 minutes of play in the second.
Wing attack, contact, circle, circle.
Oh, gee, there was some contact on the arm of Timapara George there from Gilson.
Yeah, that's a little inconsistent from Logan. That's the kind of work that she's been pulling up. And while I appreciate Selena's effort, it was a contact.
Oh, absolutely. You particularly saw it clearly from this side, which is the side Logan's operating on. We come back to this issue of why we don't have Australian and New Zealand umpires looking after these top-level matches. But you've got to deal with what you've got, and I think both coaches and all sets of players accept that. Still not ideal.
That'll do where she is. Yeah, that's good. Yes, please.
Good screen offered by a teammate. You've got to put them through, as Norma Plummer says.
Well, you can see where the work's been put on, particularly the girls screening for each other's shots. I guess that would be an air of disappointment. That one had all the potential for taking the net.
Tahuna, baseline, over Fellows. Through it goes. And she's 9 from 12. Van Dijk 9 from 10.
The double play on Megan Anderson sees her slow to get off the line. Comes from the back of the centre.
Umberto quickly through the hands to McMahon.
Contact, goal defence, partial shot.
That was a good call. Contact on the ball by Scarlett. Was a little over-enthusiastic getting the hand out early.
Well, you cannot miss those set shots. There was a good screen offered. Davu was not really in the eye line. And from good range, down to 63% Australia. Tahuna again, off to Van Dijk.
Contact, partial shot. Obstruction, goalkeeper, both out. Just where you are.
And a lead of 9. 6-1 in this second quarter. Norma Plummer with problems aplenty. Van Dijk with a layup.
Well, that hurts you as if it was 5 goals because of the level that it lifts the crowd and the team.
Barney's breaking goal defence, wing defence.
High ball over to Van Dijk that dismisses all the defence preceding it. And it's interesting that usually with a run like this, an opposing coach finds a way to access the team through an injury call or something of that ilk. It hasn't happened.
We'll come back to the circle for the Australians to put through just their second goal of the quarter. I will hope.
Ball back, please, goalkeeper.
Philly Davu testing the patience of Bill Alexander there as she shouldered McMahon away. Wilson, the flying Temapara George. Gilson, and a good match for her pace.
That's you. Yep.
Van Dijk is available at the back of Chatfield, hand in the air.
Scarlett stares at McMahon. She got a good shove into that third. Liz Ellis back out on the bench, which is good to see. But whether she can take any further part in the game, problematic.
Barney's contact wing attack.
Anderson, Southby Halbish.
Contact wing defence.
Anderson. Australian ball. Umberto breaks away from Langman.
Keep the contact, partial shot.
Davu penalised.
Miraculous take from McMahon, who was spinning to hold the position.
Well, McMahon is absolutely struggling out there at 6 from 11.
She's such a fine competitor, such a great athlete. It really hurts to see her let herself down. You can see the frustration on Sherelle's face. She knows there's about 3 goals that have gone wanting. And along with it comes the momentum building and building for the Silver Fern machine, who are playing with increasing confidence with every down-court play.
Big clash between George and Umberto, but no malice about it. Whoops. They're taking each other out, and we've got an injured New Zealand player. Getting up slowly is Langman. Wilson. Umberto on to Southby Halbish. It's starting to get as physical as we expected. It was measured in the first quarter, and people running into each other at some rate of knots now.
Well, that whole derailing happened with poor vision from Selena Gilson, and who floated the ball to a space that was always going to be shut down by Silver Ferns. They just collected each other in the process.
Australia shooting at 58%. It's killing them. New Zealand at 81. In June, it was 68% Australia, 83 New Zealand.
Well, again, that is a contest that shouldn't go unchecked, so some inconsistencies creeping into the game. But I feel fairly lame saying it, given the display from New Zealand, which is certainly superior at this stage.
Tahuna off to George, into Van Dijk.
Contact or defence.
Well, the Australians aren't going to pull out of those. They're going to continue to give it to the former South African. But it doesn't put her off a stride. She's 13 from 14. That's the incident with Scarlett. Langman has recovered from a fall. Van Dijk, great reach, has kept it in, but Fellows is there to accept it, or is she? No, she's not. And she pushed Temepara George out of the court, so it comes back for the contact. In frustration. They've dropped a few soft balls, the Aussies. Must be said. Tahuna. And good blocking out from Irene Van Dijk. And it's a 10-2 quarter so far for New Zealand. Tahuna with an ankle problem back in the attacking circle for New Zealand.
Well, I find that quite amazing on international court. She's just doing up, I thought she was doing up a shoelace and addressing a shoe. It was an Australian centre, the play going to the other end of the court. There's no way you'd stop the game for that unless it's an injury call.
No, it's an ankle. Well, maybe not much more been done than fixing the shoelace, but here is Monica Lam on Liz Ellis is back on the bench. That's a good sign.
Yeah, she's giving directions there. I can see Alison Broadbent, and currently Catherine Cox is also warming up. So whether the Australians choose to perhaps make some moves in the goal shooting circle, I would suggest that that's all they can do. Disappointing, as you've mentioned, really 68%. Or 58%, I wasn't too sure because audio was cut out a few times. Australia need to improve on that shooting percentage.
Well, Liz Ellis just walking out there, Mon, with the right knee strapped. It's not nearly as bad as we feared, so that's a positive.
She appeared to have movement behind me. She was actually doing a few runs down the walkway, so I would suggest that she could possibly hit the court again for Australia.
I'd actually be very surprised if that happened, because while she might have straight line movement, the thing we don't know is the lateral movement, which our game demands, and you really wouldn't waste her at this stage with what lies ahead for them.
Cox is on, but not for McMahon. So Southby Halby. So Cox at goal shooter.
Goal third.
And Cox and McMahon were the starters for Australia in June.
Contact wing defence.
So it's not necessarily the percentage that is perturbing Norma Plummer, although it's got to be foremost, surely.
Well, I think you've got to appreciate how much Cheryl McMahon contributes in her court craft, her defence through the mid-court. You weigh up those factors with the misses. It's very hard, I think, to remove her from the court. Again, you come back to, if you put, say, Megan Anderson there to cover her, you then have to rejig the mid-court and cover wing attack.
Van Dijk takes another rebound. And that is Van Dijk's third rebound. Chatfield has 2. The rebounds 9-3, favouring New Zealand. Well, they've missed fewer shots, so they don't offer you many rebounds.
Barnes offside, goal shooter.
George. Long ball, in, too tall even for Van Dijk. Yeah, and she's asking for a different trajectory on that ball. It was a bit flat and high, and that's a concur. Whoops. Temepara George snaffles one.
And a good take from Van Dijk on the end of the George delivery. Her hands have improved incredibly.
Temepara George is desperate to make amends for the poor feed. Straight away squeezes out a turnover. She's a champion.
Well, a la World Championships, where she's off the court 1 minute for indiscretions and she comes back on and claims the intercept. So she is tenacious, if nothing else. Really, she just commands a presence up and down the court. You almost get out of the way.
25-12.
You see there, in a contact, I would have thought on the challenge. But I think sometimes even the umpires are in awe of of her drive and you stand back on it.
A little thief in the night act from Tahuna on Fellows and picked off by Carolyn Logan. Bomberto finds Cox. Oh, the post is seriously on the move. Contact against McMahon on Davu, who shoots her a smile. Tahuna, Wilson. Irene van Dijk. 17 from 18. Cox to the corner for Bomberto. Shuffled. Oh, there was big contact there from Langman. Not called.
So much pressure on the Australian midcourt. There's not a move the feeders have made that hasn't been uncontested. So they're taking the ball under pressure, no room given them, then having to deliver. They really are struggling under the pressure.
2.5 minutes out from half-time. New Zealand already with a 13-goal lead. Their biggest win ever over Australia was 19. That was in June 1981. And, you and I were only talking about that half in jest, half in fear before the game end, that it could come to that. This is one of the best New Zealand lineups there's been in 2 decades.
I think they're riding high on confidence, and I think also to their benefit is the ability to back up a starting lineup that finished the game in June. So they haven't played too much with the line. Australia, by comparison, is really exploring the options. Norma Plummer has thrown out some things to look at in this match.
And Australia lost their captain halfway through the first quarter. Cox. That effortless shot that Australia will need lots more of to get back into the game. She's 2 from 2. Good start. And a match in height for Billy Davu, if not in build. Anderson. Bomberto. Davu let her own the edge of the circle.
Contact goal defense.
There's a bit of combination there available between Anderson and Cox, obviously, now, Annie, that they'll be having to capitalise on.
It's one of the rare links in the Australian 7. If you look at it from end to end, the two defenders don't have a natural link. Through the mid-court, they don't know each other that well. Yes, Cox and McMahon have a legacy of international court time together, but it's a matter of rebuilding when the 7 are strung this way.
Penalties still pretty even. Scoreline not. Last minute, second quarter.
Contact goal attack.
Contact calls are coming out thick and fast against McMahon. 8 penalties against her. Scarlett and Chatfield, the only others on court higher, with 11 apiece. I have to continue the comment from the first quarter. The game really lacks momentum and flow. It's not a fluent spectacle of skill. There have been a couple of runs from New Zealand that have been pretty, but it's been dogged and disjointed.
Fellows has been picked for a push in the back. She got one in return, but gave up the first one. 28 to 15. The lead was 4 at quarter time.
And Van Dijk won't get the 100% she was seeking, but she's not looking too shabby on 95% at the moment.
And they're running it almost 2 for 1 against Australia. This is hiding in the first half. Anderson on to McMahon, but half-time is blown at Trust Stadium in Auckland. And it's a pretty uncomfortable looking scoreline for them.
Put her out there again. The knee is such a query. So we'll wait on news for that, and we may not know that for 48 hours or so. But
turnover
it's a shattering
early
start.
Yeah, for Australia as they look at a 14-goal deficit, and they have made some changes in the back of the court. Norma Plummer looking like she's had a hard night already, and it's only halfway through. So Natasha Chocolate on at wing defence, and Alison Broadbent comes on at goal defence with Chatfield at goalkeeper. So Fellows is off, and so is Gilsonen. And Liana De Bruin is on for New Zealand at goal defence, replacing Scarlett. Interesting. So they've got 2 South Africans and a Fijian out there. Oh, that's churlish of a commentator to point that kind of thing out, but it does come up in discussion from time to time about this United Nations of a New Zealand netball lineup. They're pretty good, though.
looking at the changes, it may well be that both coaches were always going to introduce players to this match at half-time to blood them towards Commonwealth Games. We won't know that until after the event, but they may well have had those players up their sleeves to enter partway through. For Australia, it really has been a big ask to blend so many players on court, and it's all ahead in this third quarter.
Tahuna.
Barney's offside and
George.
contact centre.
Who nicely clears Von Berto off her.
Broadbent gave Tahuna a good shove and spotted by Bill Alexander.
Good work from Bianca Chatfield, who stayed good distance and up nice and straight on the shot.
Bomberto with the centre pass for Australia. Anderson playing at wing attack. Just joining us. Liz Ellis injured in the first quarter. The Australian lineup was a surprise to start with, and it continues to be disrupted. Langman, George.
Well, De Bruin did a wonderful job then of restricting Catherine Cox to the top part of the circle. She wasn't able to roll or get herself back.
Tahuna, longer range shot and just disguised off to Van Dijk.
You talk about De Bruin entering the game. They can rest Scarlett. They've also got Casey Williams out with an ankle injury. Big raps on her, one of the New Zealand defenders, named as player of their domestic season. She'll be back in November when they travel to Jamaica, November 7, and another option for Com Games for New Zealand.
So De Bruin off to George. Tahuna. Looking very confident, very light on her feet, Tahuna. Lovely footwork.
It's not enough for the Australian defensive pair to put so much work in on Van Dijk. With an eye on Tahuna, it's got to be put, the pressure's got to be on outside on the feed. So big ask for Chocolate and for Von Berto to really pressure the feeders.
Van Dijk, who sets very high standards for herself, would only be satisfied with 96%. Wants that 100% game against Australia. It'll have to come another day.
Cox has brought good accuracy to the start of her campaign in this test. She's 4 from 4, taking on the long-range shots with confidence.
She's enjoying herself out there, Irene Van Dijk, although a smile is never far from her face, whatever the game situation. I said to her the other day when we were doing some of those interviews, you've had a terrific career, 129 internationals, and you almost never seem to get injured. Why is that? I said, well, I work hard, I've got a great personal trainer, and a little measure of luck in there perhaps. But she is a stronger player than she was 5 years ago. She finished her career with South Africa.
Oh, absolutely. She has flourished being at the back of the Silver Fern line. And they've adopted her, obviously. She's brought a great deal of focus to the game here, and it was already strong. But certainly it's been a marriage made in heaven.
2 out.
Both the Australian defenders out. Van Dijk.
Further in round.
So here you are,
That's
potential
good, yeah.
goalers around Australia. This is how it's done. Although that's from 6 feet 3.
Nice stretch from Van Dijk, who crumples after the take with a little help from Chatfield.
They just got the legs tangled there. Not too much in that in terms of unfair play.
Contact.
Trying
to put 4 tall women in a confined space. It's going to be contact.
It's an accidental contact, isn't it? And it's ruled the same way. Another little poke there from Sherelle McMahon, who must be frustrated.
10th penalty from McMahon, 15th for Chatfield. So they've got half of the Australian penalties between the two of them. That is the New Zealand hockey team who are playing Australia in a World Cup qualifier tomorrow. First of 3, and there are 2 in Sydney late next week. So they're on the phone saying, hey, here we go. Can you see me? That'll be a tough match for the Hockey-roos, but right now it's tougher yet for the Australian netball team.
Temapara George uses the metre off the court beautifully at full stretch, at full speed. She takes the ball, is floating off court, turns and places it down court so well.
Oh, Van Dijk, get out. That's a fantastic stretch, balance, and Tahuna finishes. It was Donna Loffhagen and Bernice Menny we saw in the crowd moments ago. Both of those players would have appreciated what Van Dijk is being able to show us. 26 from 27.
Barney Instruction Centre.
Tahuna
Keep the contact.
Chatfield mistimes the jump and will stand out.
Bill Alexander working up a fair sweat. And 38-19. 5 rebounds for Van Dijk. And they're out to a record margin over Australia.
Great work between De Bruin and Billy Darbu. Times their run beautifully, and they really are giving their crowd plenty of opportunities to applaud.
Oh, the coaching staff have to be delighted with that sweep down court from the Ferns, out by 20. Australia just 4 goals in this quarter. They had 6 in the last and 9 in the first, and they are being humbled here.
It's one of those unfortunate moments in international sport where one of the usual champions just has to suck it in and see out the match, because it is not happening for Australia. And New Zealand, by contrast, have changed the defensive line, and we now see another combination working just as sweetly.
So Catherine Cox came on in the second quarter.
Beautifully placed ball. Centimetre perfect, and just a tiny smile on the face of Lee Gibbs, who must feel like standing up and screaming. Bear in mind, the Silver Ferns still have Belinda Colling, former captain, goal attack as an option on the bench. They still have Anna Rosery, former captain, option on the bench, who many claim was perhaps the best mid-quarter through their trialling phase, but is waiting her turn behind captain and vice-captain to hit this court.
Another turnover. And Billy Darbu to get the Ferns going forward once more. Langman to Darbu. And with a margin like this, you might think that Ruth Aitken would be tempted to go to the bench.
Beautiful work again from Temapara George. He just loses the handle.
Chocolate to Bomberto. McMahon. The corner for Anderson, and works to the front of the 2 defenders. Still quick. McMahon late in the third quarter. Having done so much work in and outside the circle. George. Oh, looked like a lovely ball, and she just needed Dean Wilson to be a little bit taller.
Obstruction, wing defense.
Those errors, though, only reinforce how confident the world #1 now are in taking on things that probably shouldn't happen, but they're going to give it a go anyway.
Cox. Oh, even that rims out. Seemed to be a goal, and then squirted out.
Well, that's the first miss from Cox since she took the court. She's 5 from 6 at 83%. Southby Halbish left the court at 63%, and McMahon is shooting at 69.
Light hands from Tahuna in that exchange with Wilson. Can't finish it, but guess who's there to take her 6th rebound? Van Dijk. 31 from 32. And that's her husband there. Now, McMahon gives fooled a few people.
Contact with defense.
Contact outside the circle called. The ball was in the hands of McMahon, about a metre from the post. Quick play of the centre.
New Zealand by 20. They're up by 14 at half-time and just by 4 at quarter time.
Beautiful deception as Tahuna looks to the feeder. Pushes it on to Van Dijk, but it was read well.
Obstruction, goal shooter.
Irene Van Dijk giving up just her 2nd penalty of the game. Dean Wilson has not had a penalty. Extraordinary from the New Zealand captain at wing attack. McMahon to take the 1 out of this big margin. 4:40 left in the third.
More impressive than no penalties is the fact that she's only had 1 turnover against her, so only 1 waste of possession, and that's a very impressive stat on a feeder.
A step against Billy Darbu as she swept away with the turnover. Cheryl Dawson, the former manager of the New Zealand Silver Ferns. And back to 18. A little bit of a run coming from the Australians, but its margin is too big to haul back in the last quarter, one would think. 19 minutes of netball left in the game.
Again, the Australians forced to relinquish to Hoona so that they can focus on Irene van Dijk.
Tahuna 12 from 21. Actually, in the opening minutes, was forced to do more of the shooting than Van Dijk, but it's gone back to its usual ratio. Oh, Bomberto couldn't do much with that.
Contact centre.
Cox.
Keep
Contact from behind by Billy Davu.
A confusing call then from Carolyn Logan, who went to take off running, which would indicate it was a New Zealand possession. She was actually trying to say it was Australia's, and it was a penalty. Had to stop herself mid-sprint, but that's confusing for the players who go to set up with the direction she indicates.
Just got a little sloppy in the last minute or two. Players getting a little fatigued, you could imagine. George over to De Bruin.
Instruction.
Wilson gives it over to George for the restart.
Barney's instruction centre.
Tahuna. And the New Zealand shooting percentage hasn't been under 80% all game. Propped up somewhat by Van Dijk's 97 to Tahuna's 59, but it's a team game. I wonder if Colling mightn't get a run in the last 15 minutes, Annie, as you suggested, is certainly a possibility for Ruth.
I really can't see any reason for holding players of that calibre out of this game, given the margin, given the feel.
And it's out to 21. Australia set a pass. Chocolate.
Contact in defence.
Contact against Langman. Anderson has it. Megan Anderson, yes, playing at wing attack. Cox. There's 3 Australian players left out of the 12. Certainly wouldn't be saying, oh, I'm glad I'm not playing, but they'd be saying, that's tough out there. If I had to miss one, maybe this is it.
Oh, it's a difficult position on court, and it's difficult off court. But Barrett, Heinrich and Avellino wouldn't be enjoying the spectacle, as no Australian would be. You feel for the girls on court, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge how beautifully the Silver Ferns are playing.
And they've got their bench coming up outside.
Colling left of that shot, talking to Anna Robury.
Chocolate. And the drive through the centre third. Billy Davu just picks it off.
Yeah, poor vision, though, from the Australians. Chocolate should have seen the space and who was attacking the ball. It also gave an overload that the pass could have gone away from, and Australia would have had the numbers on the other side.
There's evidence, as if we don't see it often enough through a game, that Billy Davu is much more than height and strength. She reads the game beautifully. 55 matches for Fiji and her 45th for New Zealand tonight. Game number 100 for Billy Davu at this level.
Chocolate putting the feed up, but really misreading the space. Light hands from George. De Bruin has not seen the Silver Ferns miss a beat since her introduction. She's slotted it nicely from the bench at goal defence.
Instruction goal defence, 2 out.
And Alison Broadbent queries the call. Natasha Chocolate, a rueful smile at the umpire. And I think there's a collective frustration out there. Langman nearly got a meaningful touch. And it's Australian ball. McMahon trying to work some angles. Width of the court. Anderson. And that is 3/4 time, and they have stretched the lead to an unlikely 23 goals, New Zealand. Well, they were favoured to win, but not by this kind of score. 15 minutes left in this game for Australia to try and make the scoreline a little respectable, keep it away from that record 17-goal deficit from 24 years ago. And ouch. So 9 in the first quarter, 6 in the second, and 10 in the third. That is a low conversion. So Cox and McMahon have swapped, as Billy Davu just helps her out the back of the court. Says sorry, kind of, sort of, maybe. Wilson on to Van Dijk, and this is beautiful netball the Ferns are playing. They're quick, they're efficient.
Well, it's out of the hands quickly and lightly, and it's placed ahead beautifully.
Well, that's Irene's daughter there, who we had the wonderful experience of seeing at a game when Irene was signing autographs afterwards. The daughter was on the court, and fans were asking her to sign autographs as well.
It's an easy ride, isn't it?
Yeah. Broadbent, Fellows. So Fellows back on for Chatfield. Fellows who came on when Liz Ellis was injured. And that opened up the circle quite nicely. Cox out at goal attack, and all I guess Norma Plummer can do is try a different combination or two. Jess Shin is back on, of course, at centre too, taking that centre pass. Oh, McMahon was put totally off the stride by a bit of leg tanglement, and it put the pass off as well.
Norma Plummer in the horrible position of watching magnificent players start to lose their timing and their skill under the pressure of this margin.
Fellows and Broadbent in the circle for Australia. That's not a combination you would think she'd expect to have to try at this level. Billy Davu gets rid of McMahon. Shin got hands to it. Wilson collects. Colling.
Great work from Chocolate. She read the triangle at the edge of the New Zealand circle well and shut it down.
Anderson open after Langman had a bit of a dip.
You can see the players not used to the lineup. The timing is out. They're running down each other's pathways, and that just comes from lack of time together and understanding. And this is probably nowhere near a lineup Norma Plummer was expecting to string together.
George. Shortest but quickest player out there, I'd venture to say, Tamapara. Fans booing some of the contact in the circle. And Colling will retake it.
Stand beside her. Hand away, that's you. Yep.
It's one thing to hear Carolyn Logan, it's another to understand her.
Well, I think Belinda Colling wasn't sure whether are you yelling at me or are you yelling at Demelza Fellows, but you're yelling. Beautiful timing. Demelza Fellows not in the hunt, still setting up on the high ball, and Van Dyke did the front cut.
Second miss only for Irene Van Dyke from 37 attempts. And Alison Broadbent draws the disapproval of 5,000 Kiwis for the contact on Colling. 26 the margin. Cox, Anderson. Oh, some traffic there. Quick hands from New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand very quick at shutting down the space, and again Australia the timing out and they're misreading the options.
Dean Wilson, New Zealand captain, still yet to give up a penalty. Gilson, and when she was on, only gave up the one, so they had a pretty clean game on each other.
Interesting that Ruth Aiken must value the calibre of this win. I would have expected Anna Robury to come on in the mid-court, but with so few changes, she's really wanted to keep the rhythm going and the understanding. She hasn't risked the mid-court change, which is so important to the timing in the team.
Well, this is a huge psychological edge that the Kiwis must take from this game towards Melbourne. They won't meet again until a Commonwealth Games semi-final or final, one would imagine.
Well, they're of course in opposing pools for Commonwealth Games, and the expectation is that they will meet each other in the final.
Anderson, McMahon. Australia's been held to just one goal in 5 minutes. And 6 for New Zealand.
Where she is fine, please. And that's obstruction. Advantage goal.
Plenty of lessons for Norma Plummer. It's okay to make mistakes, take defeats, whatever you want to call it, as long as you learn from them. There's probably only so much you can do as the blind ball back into court from Van Dyke even finds its mark, but that's great backup from Colling.
Brilliant support play, very knowing and experienced play, and also they're riding off great passion. They know they've got the game, so they're riding on the front foot, whereas the Australians are playing off their back foot.
Australia's lowest ever total against New Zealand was 27 goals, 3 times, 1948 and twice in 1985. 9 minutes to go, they'll eclipse that, but boy, they have been shown how it's played here.
Shot good, faster shot, keeper. By side, please. Keeper up and late.
You see here the contact on Sherrill McMahon, Davu taking the body line.
In the end, probably say this is a cleaner game contact-wise than what we saw in Sydney, but separation in class. As New Zealand only won that match in Sydney by 7 goals, and we're out to 27.
Wonderful split from Irene van Dijk. She wasn't going to be a long way from the post either way, but she ensured the closest shot possible. Cox with a mid-range shot, rings back at her, and Davu there to pick up the rewards. And quickly, New Zealand down court. They've had several passages of play where the speed of the ball and the speed of release has been so pretty to watch. Colling, since entering the game, shooting at 100%, 4 from 4, and of course her support player for Van Dijk, brilliant. They of course have teamed up at World Championships to good dividend.
Oh, Van Dijk, great hand, just a touch off. Well, that 19-goal loss back in 81 was also Australia's biggest loss to anybody. So you're looking here at Australia's largest deficit in international netball. But I think you're also looking at a New Zealand side, the like of which we may not have seen before. Cox. McMahon tried to find Shin. Langman got the tip. Davu picks up. De Bruin. Colling calls her up court. They are enjoying this. Langman, least experienced player out there for the Ferns. This is just her 5th international. What a way to bring her on amongst such experienced players.
Well, I guess if you look at a glass and you think about it being half full or half empty, I'm going to go the half full.
Good on you.
Line for obvious reasons. You won't see Australia play this way again. New Zealand are playing beautifully. Their line has been shown. Their options have been shown, and yes, all beautiful. Australia has played without Liz Ellis. Several players still injured. The combination not gelling. It won't happen again. So we kind of know where New Zealand sit. We take that away. Australia, we know, can do so much better, so that's the confidence part of it.
I'll tell you what, though, Irene van Dijk is not going to get any shorter between now and February, March.
No, but I'm taking her shopping. And I'm not bringing her back for match time.
Okay. Liz Ellis would love to have been out there for more than the 7-odd minutes she was before sustaining a knee injury. The good news is it's not as serious as it first appeared. And the margin is 30 with 5.5 to go. Shin. Natasha Chocolate. Megan Anderson. McMahon. Anderson there. It's a patient build-up, but still a long way from goal.
Oh, De Bruin putting in the work on McMahon. This time it goes Australia's way.
Good screen set by McMahon. And Davu, who went to the floor, got called for the contact, so didn't get any sympathy out of Bill Alexander. Oh, Fellows plucks one out of the air. Nice work. Shin. Anderson. And the Kiwis haven't offered too many of those. They've got a very good low mistake rate, Annie, which would please Ruth Aitken.
Oh, it's incredible how they've cherished possession.
19 turnovers against New Zealand, 28 Australia. There's an indication of it. And rebounds, ouch, 15-3.
Whilst the polish is off the Australian game, I guess you have to credit their intensity. They're playing as if the margin was closer, as you would expect. from a team as experienced as them.
Pause in play while they wipe the floor at the Australian attack ends. Might be where Billy Darbu hit the deck moments ago. She does perspire pretty freely. It's plenty of hard work out there. So Lee Gibbs left and Ruth Aitken. New Zealand's highest score against Australia was 6 years ago, 60 goals. So they ought to be able to eclipse that.
Barney's obstruction centre.
McMahon, good screen set by Cox, but the conversion's not there, and Darbu, after a tip from McMahon, takes it uncontested. They spill it. Colling. The flying Temapara George. Gee, they've produced some great centres over the years. And think back to Sandra Edge, who at her time was without peer.
And Lynn Parker before her. Lee Gibbs also a mid-court wing defence for New Zealand on the bench now as assistant coach. But yes, just amazing athletic centres with the finesse and the ability to feed. So often you get a centre that can be the linking, driving player, but they do produce a feeding centre.
A little ambitious that time from George, gave it to Broadbent. And it'll be Australian possession at the side. The turnovers, the mistakes, happening at a fairly frenetic pace. Cox, Anderson the corner, and Billy Darbu arrives to touch out and clean up the post.
I think we might have made her look better than she was then by forcing a ball, and we should have swung it in the other direction and opened it up again.
McMahon won't stop trying till the last second. Got it back to 28. Margin was 30. Shin, Cox, Anderson lets it go. Oh, great ball from Shin, off balance. Better work from Australia with maybe the New Zealand foot off the pedal a little. You want to win every quarter in a match like this if you're the winning coach.
I think what's most frustrating is that you could see the work the Australian players had done and the tactics they were putting out. You could see them employing it in the first quarter, the screening for the shooters, the double up in defence. The hard thing is, it hasn't paid off, and where to go to now is a huge question, other than rebuilding confidence.
Colling. Dean Wilson pulled out of that very wisely. Knew a teammate was there. It was going to be a clash of teammates. But it's Alison Broadbent getting a taste of the floor here at the Trust Stadium in Auckland.
There.
The Australians throwing themselves into spaces and options they wouldn't normally, and all born from frustration.
And the penalty count is building. 81 to 50 against Australia. And that's mostly come in the second half, hasn't it, Todd? Yeah. Thank you. Todd Miller's with us, our statistician. Squeezed him out of Adelaide. So get here.
A replay call on Irene van Dijk has brought the house down. I have to say it was a fairly light call as well. We've seen that inconsistency from Carolyn Logan as to when the play is deemed a replay. In Australia and New Zealand, you really need to see somebody have full possession, then lose it and regain for it to be that call.
A few goals in what you might call the junk minutes, but Wilson, the captain, leading by a fine example. Still not a penalty against her name. A clean, skillful player.
Contact centre, penalty pass New Zealand.
You must be pinching yourself. Am I really leading this great side? Oh, yes, she is.
Lovely story in the media this week in New Zealand that she realised she'd gained seniority when they gave her the keys to the van and she got to drive the bus, and she suddenly realised that had always been the older players. Oh my gosh, it's me. And as we can see, they all arrived safely.
Record score for New Zealand against Australia. Record defeat for Australia at the hands of New Zealand. Fellows. Chocolate. Shin. Well, perhaps not entirely through choice. Norma Plummer has used all Australian 12 players.
That was lovely play then by Australia. Direct and calculated down court, very accurate.
McMahon with perhaps the last shot of the game. 10 seconds left. And it dribbles through. And an ambitious ball for Van Dijk. Nearly found her as well. And that's all the action we'll see, but New Zealand will be delighted with a record victory in Auckland. 61-36.
So first and last time at this stadium, they ought to wrap it up in plastic and leave it as a monument.